John Gillis Townsend was Delaware's 40th senator, and he served 2 full terms from 1929 to 1941. But his time in office isn't 12 years, it's 11 years and 10 months, thanks to the 20th Amendment. Townsend was born in Bishopville, Maryland, an unincorporated community in Worcester County. That part's not really important, I just wanted to say Worcester County. Townsend worked as a telegraph operator for the Pennsylvania Railroad and from there became a businessman, manufacturing and selling railroad ties. A few years later, his mind turned to farming. He moved to Selbyville, Delaware and started growing strawberries. As it turned out, that was a good idea. His new venture was extremely profitable and before long he was known as the Strawberry King. He was so successful he set up his own bank in Bridgeville, which for some reason he called the Baltimore Trust Company. He eventually expanded his agricultural operations to include poultry, corn, and soybeans. In addition to his interest in agriculture, he also had an interest in politics, although it was more of a side interest at first. He did 1 term in the State House of Representatives in 1903, but that was his only elected office until 1916. By that point, he was much more of a recognizable public figure on account of his strawberry-related royalty, and he was elected governor of Delaware. He defeated James H. Hughes, who would coincidentally become Townsend's colleague in the Senate 20 years later. Speaking of the Senate, Townsend decided to challenge the incumbent Thomas F. Bayard Jr. in 1928, and he absolutely crushed him. Seriously, that election would remain Delaware's most lopsided Senate election for 60 more years until 1988. Townsend was re-elected in 1934 and ran for a 3rd term in 1940, but lost to James M. Tunnell. During Townsend's first term, back in 1933, the 20th Amendment had become part of the Constitution. One of the things this amendment did was change the starting date of Congress from March 4th to January 3rd. So Townsend's first term started on March 4th, 1929, and his second term ended January 3rd, 1941. So he did serve 2 full terms, but that's why his time in office is only 11 years, 10 months. Anyway, he returned to his agricultural business and spent the rest of his long life expanding it. He finally died in 1964 at the age of 92. He was, and still is, the longest-lived senator in Delaware history. As for his business, it stayed in the family for the next 2 generations and even expanded into North Carolina and Arkansas. But the company fell on hard times in the early 2000s, and the Delaware part of it is now owned by Mount Air Farms. Also, coincidentally, there is a Townsend, Delaware, but it was founded in 1885 and it's named after someone completely unrelated.